All right, today we're going to dive into the really compelling and, let's be honest, controversial story of Chris McCandless, as told in Jon Krakauer's amazing book, Into the Wild. It's a story that, well, it forces you to think about some huge ideas: freedom, solitude, and just how fragile our ideals can sometimes be. So take a look at this quote. This right here, from Henry David Thoreau, was basically Chris McCandless's personal motto. It just perfectly sums up what drove him, this deep, all-consuming search for truth, no matter what it cost him. So let's get into it and see what that search actually looked like. So who was this man? The man who just walked away from everything? We're talking about Christopher McCandless. And this was a young guy who, on paper, had it all. I mean, he just graduated from a top university, came from a wealthy family, but he decided to turn his back on the whole thing, everything society said he was supposed to want. He even gave himself a new name, Alexander Supertramp, and set off on a journey, not just to run away, but to find a life that felt real. Okay, so let's try to map out this wild 2-year odyssey he went on. His journey took him all across the American West, an adventure fueled by these powerful ideals that were all building up to one final epic challenge: the vast, unforgiving Alaskan wilderness. And get this, his journey kicked off in the most dramatic way possible. Right after graduating college in 1990, he takes his entire life savings, we're talking $24,000, and just donates it all to charity. And then, poof, he was gone. He cut off all contact, leaving his family absolutely heartbroken and confused. He literally shed his old life and just hit the road with whatever he could carry. And once he was on the road, man, he was truly living off the grid. He'd do anything: hitchhike, work odd jobs on farms, just fully embracing this simple, stripped-down life. And the whole time, he was just soaking up these books. You know, guys like Tolstoy and Thoreau. Their ideas about self-reliance and nature were pretty much the fuel for his whole adventure.
But here's the crazy thing, right? For a guy who was trying so hard to be alone, he had this incredible knack for connecting with people. He formed these really tight bonds with other travelers like Jan and Bob Burris, and he basically became like a surrogate grandson to an older man named Ronald Franz. It's this huge paradox in his story, this constant push and pull between wanting solitude and actually forming these really deep human connections.
So everything he did, all the travel, all the people he met, it was all building towards one thing, one final goal: Alaska. This was going to be it, the ultimate test of his survival skills, and really his entire philosophy, the final frontier, as he called it. So in April of '92, he does it. He walks into the Alaskan wild, all by himself, heading down the Stampede Trail. And at first, it was amazing, a total success story. His journal is just full of these incredible euphoric highs. He was hunting, living off the land, feeling totally self-reliant. But, summer in Alaska is tricky. The wild started to fight back. He found himself trapped by a river that had become an impassable torrent. His food ran low, and that's when things started to go wrong, badly wrong. Yeah, his health just plummeted in those last days. And one of the big theories, which Krakauer really digs into, is that he might have accidentally poisoned himself with moldy seeds from this plant, Hedysarum alpinum. Basically, a toxic mold on the seeds slowly starved his body from the inside out. Just a tragic, tragic mistake. And yet, despite how it all ended, his final words are just something else. He wrote this note, and it's filled with this incredible sense of peace and gratitude. He wrote, "I have had a happy life and thank the Lord. Goodbye, and may God bless all."
He died alone, in that old abandoned bus he'd been using for shelter. And when hunters finally found him, weeks later, he weighed only 67 pounds. I mean, just imagine that. It's an absolutely heartbreaking end to a search for something so pure.
Okay, so it's easy to look at this as just an adventure story that ended badly. But it's so much more than that. To really get it, we've got to look at the deeper themes, the big ideas that make this story so powerful and, honestly, so haunting. So let's dive into that. Really, at the heart of it all, this was a quest for purity. He was pushing back hard against what he felt was a phony, materialistic world. He believed that by stripping everything away, by facing real hardship, he could find some kind of moral clarity. So rejecting his comfortable life wasn't just about running away, it was about running towards something he felt was more real, more authentic. And you can't talk about his story without talking about his family. Krakauer's reporting suggests that things at home weren't as perfect as they seemed on the surface. There were secrets, pain, and contradictions that probably fueled that intense desire to just disappear. So when he went completely silent, it wasn't just rebellion. It might have been self-preservation too. And this really gets to the two faces of nature in his story, right? On one side, you have this beautiful, romantic, almost spiritual experience in the wild. But on the other side, you have something that's terrifying, something that is completely indifferent and just doesn't care about you or your ideals. And McCandless found that out the hard way.
And here's a really cool part of the book itself. The author, Jon Krakauer, he actually puts his own story in there, of a dangerous solo adventure he took when he was young. He's not making excuses for Chris. He's trying to connect with him. He sees himself in that same youthful ambition, that same spiritual hunger to find something real out there in the wild.
Of course, a story this powerful couldn't just stay on the page. It resonated with so many people that, in 2007, it was turned into a major film, and his story just exploded into the mainstream consciousness.
Sean Penn directed it, and wow, it is just a beautiful, powerful movie. And that soundtrack by Eddie Vedder, it's legendary. It's basically the voice of the film. The movie is what really cemented McCandless's place as this modern mythic figure, a symbol of that romantic and often tragic search for authenticity.
So, after all that, what do we do with this story? What are we supposed to make of Chris McCandless? That's the thing, isn't it? There are no easy answers here. It just leaves you wrestling with a ton of big questions.
I think Krakauer puts it best when he quotes James Joyce to describe Chris. He was unheeded, happy, and near to the wild heart of life. It really hits on that pure joy he seemed to find, even when he was completely alone in the world.
But maybe the most poignant, most powerful words come from Chris himself. Right at the very end, he scribbled this in the margin of a book: "Happiness only real when shared." It's a gut punch, really. The biggest truth he learned was one he figured out when there was no one left to share it with.
So, if this story got you thinking and you want to go deeper on these ideas, there's a lot of other great stuff out there. Books like Cheryl Strayed's Wild, or even going back to the original source of inspiration, Thoreau's Walden, offer really fascinating, different takes on this whole human relationship with nature and solitude.
And so that leaves us right back where we started, with the big, haunting question that people have been arguing about for decades. Was Chris McCandless just a recklessly naive kid who tragically got in way over his head? Or was he something more, something transcendently brave? Someone who actually dared to live by his beliefs, no matter the consequences? That's the question at the heart of it all.